plate behind me. He signed it. We put a piece of plexiglass over it, and his name was for the airplane was Ina Macon Bell, and Ina was his future wife after the war. And he was a really cool guy. His son's still around, and I miss Lee because he was actually out there when I tested the airplane. He gave us a lot of input on the paint job, specifically the little guy on the back there, and there was really only two Tuskegee guys that had any kind of personal artwork on their airplanes other than the names. And he described it to me. He said, "Yeah." I said, so what's the deal with this guy, Lee, in the back there?" He said, "Oh man, that's a jitterbug in a zoot suit with a jive chain." I'm like, "Oh wow, that's pretty cool." So anyway, I'm trying to think of anything else. The airplane, it's got a big engine. It's 1,500 horsepower. And on takeoff, I was burning a gallon of fuel every 20 seconds. Anyway, so don't tell the guy. If you know, once I get up to cruise and I kind of bring the throttle back and I make my flyby settings, you know, it comes back to an extremely economical gallon per minute. And if you compute that for one guy at the speed you're going, works out to about 4.5, 5 miles a gallon. Not as efficient as some of the hybrids today, but you got to make sure you're going in style. Does anybody have any questions about myself being a tip of the airplane? I'll answer them. Yes, sir. Top cruising speed. I was coming back. Now, of course, depending on how the airplane's configured, if I took the shackles off, it would go a little bit faster. But today, when I was coming back from Sanford, I was indicating about 245 miles an hour. And if you go up to altitude, you know, at a pretty nice altitude, it'll cruise out about 300 miles an hour. Of course, if you put drop tanks on it, that's going to slow it down, but it's going to extend your range. So it's one of the faster fighters, and it's a lot of fun to fly. It's kind of an interesting. It's a real trim airplane. Every time I'm pitching up or going this way or adding throttle and pulling it off, I'm always tweaking the elevator trim or the rudder trim. Not so much the aileron trim. That's just basically balance for how much fuel you got on each side. But some of the other airplanes, like the Wildcat, the only time I really change the trim is if like I'm coming in to land or setting up the cruise, and the rudder doesn't seem to be a big deal. But anybody else have a question?
Question, the propellers,
yep.
Are they fixed or they?
They're variable pitch, and it has a governor, and the pitch is actually changed with engine oil pressure. Okay, and there's a big piston in there. When the piston goes up, it changes the pitch of the blade. So there's a little governor in there with like some little counterweights. So the pilot adjusts what RPM he wants in the cockpit with the propeller control, and then the governor changes the pitch of the blades to compensate for it. So if you imagine that the pitch, say you were cruising along at 2,400 RPM, okay? And what would happen is if you put the nose down and you didn't touch anything, normally if it was a fixed pitch propeller, the RPM would start to increase, okay? Like if you are pedaling and you go downhill on a bicycle, it gets a lot easier, okay? Consequently, if you were cruising along and you went up, it would slow down. So what happens is